Well, hello, good evening and welcome to episode 103 of Fracking Nightmare. As you can probably tell, it's a rather chilly day here at the Kirby Misperton Protection Camp, but there again, what else would one expect in the middle of winter here in North Yorkshire? That said, we have had some absolutely stunningly beautiful sunrises and sunsets, and over the last few days we've actually enjoyed some beautiful winter sunshine, and long may that continue. Well, it's been a very busy week. More visitors. I think our total number of visitors is now well in excess of 1,500 people through the gates here, coming to visit, come to help with the construction and the expansion of the camp, ready for the day when Third Energy start rolling their trucks 2.5 miles away from here, past the camp, down to the well site just south of the village of Kirby Misperton. Now, over the last weekend, we had BBC reporter here, Danny Hewson, and she stayed here for 24 hours, camping overnight. Bit of a gamble, but in the scheme of things, I think it was a balanced report, and we'll put a link to that report, which appeared on Look North underneath the YouTube video. Well, at the end of that report, John Dewar was given the opportunity to express his observations about the camp. Needless to say, he elected to simply observe that he probably didn't have anything to say that the protection community would want to listen to. But he also observed that he doesn't use social media, thereby actually acknowledging the power of social media. And I have to say, it's well worth watching, because John Dewar not only looks decidedly uncomfortable and not a little nervous, but seeing the way in which he dodges the questions, replacing the reporter's questions with his own interpretation, is very telling. So John Dewar, we understand, had no desire to be the first company to actually try and frack a well, and I say try because obviously others have tried and failed. So Dewar had no desire to be the first, expecting Quadrilla to hold that mantle. But at the moment, this well at Kirby Misperton is the only well that is drilled and with permissions to frack. So John, whether you like it or not, we're here for the duration, regardless of whether you're first or whether you wait for Quadrilla and see what they're able to achieve or not, as the case might be, at Preston New Road. So take a look at that BBC report, and it'll give a bit of a flavour of the way in which the camp is progressing here at Kirby Misperton. Now, during the week, other news has really focused on INEOS. Now, let's just remind ourselves that INEOS is the private dominion of Jim Ratcliffe. Jim Ratcliffe is the multi-billionaire. His reported personal wealth is in excess of £7 billion as a result of his truly outstanding entrepreneurial talents, buying refineries and chemical plants from the likes of BP and Herxt and BASF and others, and turning them into the empire that is now INEOS. Well, INEOS are the largest license holder of pedals, the largest single license holder of pedals across the UK, with some 1,500 square miles across the north of England. That's about 1 million acres. But they have now added to that. So over the last few weeks, they have announced that they have effectively taken control of Moorland Energy. Now, Moorland only had a single license area, and that's an area that runs right across the top of the Third Energy license here in North Yorkshire. And an interesting part of that license is that it gives them the opportunity to build a gas processing plant. In fact, the planning permissions for that gas processing plant, I believe, expire the latter part of this year, but they could certainly go and seek an extension to the existing planning permission. And this is perhaps a little bit of an embarrassment for one of the major protagonists for fracking, for unconventional gas exploitation in this country, and that is the North Yorkshire resident Lorraine Allinson. And she's one of about 4 people, maybe 5 across the UK, who seem to think that fracking is a good idea. But there's a bit of an embarrassment for her, because when the gas processing plant at Thornton-le-Dale was first mooted back in, I think, 2011 or so, then she was one of the major antagonists against that project, referring to it as a blot on the landscape. Well, of course, the processing plant is nothing compared to what the unconventional gas industry will leave as its legacy if it manages to get a foothold here or anywhere else in the country. Elsewhere, INEOS have effectively fired the starting gun on their intention to literally frack right across the north of England, taking an 8-page spread to put out their propaganda in the regional newspapers in South Yorkshire and North Derbyshire. Now, you know, one of the fundamental issues here is that we keep hearing that the reason that the British government wants to push ahead with unconventional gas exploitation in the UK is to address the issue of national energy security. But INEOS make a mockery of this, because INEOS have made it abundantly clear that they have no intention of mining the gas for putting into the national grid. They intend to mine the gas purely for the purpose of feedstock for their own operations in Falkirk, in Humberside and on Merseyside, and to power their own generating plants in those locations, which primarily feed power into their industrial operations. So the reality is that if any of the INEOS mined gas does find its way into the national distribution network, it will be a very small percentage of it. So one has to wonder how the communities in INEOS, i.e. Jim Ratcliffe, targeted areas actually feel about living in a sacrifice zone that will only benefit potentially one man, Jim Ratcliffe. INEOS isn't even a public listed company. It is a privately owned company, privately owned by Jim Ratcliffe, whose personal wealth includes a 230 something foot yacht, which he coincidentally bought after effectively blackmailing the British government into giving him £134 million to keep the Falkirk refinery open a few years ago. And in addition, he has a smaller yacht, I guess, in case the other one's caught up in dry dock somewhere. He also has 4 private jets and an undisclosed number of personal properties. So these communities within the 1,500 square miles plus of INEOS licenses across Yorkshire, going into Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire and across to Cheshire, these communities are being targeted purely to enhance the already obscene wealth of one man. Well, of course, it can be stopped, and those communities hopefully will realise that the 8-page propaganda spread to initiate a strategy to counter applications submitted by INEOS at every step of the way. Exactly like was done here in North Yorkshire, but of course, as we know, that went all the way to judicial review, only to be rejected in the High Court, which is why we are here camped out in a field in North Yorkshire in the middle of winter. Now, my first interview this week is going to be with a wonderful lady who has travelled up from Lincolnshire to visit the camp, and she has been instrumental in helping to educate the county councillors and to raise awareness in her community. And this is what led to the North Lincolnshire Council rejecting the application by Egdon Resources to do an acid frack at the well in Wrestle. Now I'm sure obviously it will be appealed at some point, but at this stage it is a very significant victory in this battle to protect this very fragile ecology of ours in the UK. Well, I'm absolutely delighted to be able to welcome Liz Williams to Kirby Misperton Protection Camp. It's a bit of a grey day here and the temperature isn't that much above freezing, so you'll have to forgive all the extra layers that we're wearing here in this outside studio. But Liz has ventured across the Humber from Lincolnshire to show her support to the Kirby Misperton Protection Camp. But as I mentioned last week, Lincolnshire, North Lincolnshire Council has made a momentous decision, and Liz was one of the group of fractivists that effectively worked on trying to encourage the Lincolnshire councillors to do their own research, to do their own education, and obviously that contributed to the decision. So Liz, how long were you actually on the case?
The planning application was placed at the end of May last year. Obviously Frack Free Lincolnshire had formed 3 years ago, precisely with this kind of aim in mind to fight it as it came closer to us. Although we were very active supporting all the other campaign groups on the front line, as you know, and we felt enormous support from all of them as well. And although it has been an intensely demanding, relentless 6 or 7 months creating a case or building a case against the unusual kind of fracking that was in the application before.
Which was an acid frack, wasn't it?
Acid frack, but they didn't call it acid frack. They called it, what did they call it? Well, they stated, of course, every time they got a chance, we are not high volume hydraulic fracturing or shale oil and gas, which is a bit disingenuous because A, it wasn't shale and it was sandstone. The Wrestle well is a sandstone reserve, and B, yes, it's not high volume hydraulic fracturing, but it is high pressure.
I've got to congratulate your campaign in particular, because it was very evident from the hearing in North Lincolnshire that the councillors on the planning committee had done their research.
Yes.
They had looked at the,
them.
you know, they've heard this overused phrase,
Yeah.
you know, robust regulatory control, robust regulation. And when we heard that the councillors had literally challenged the capabilities and the expertise and the resources of the Environment Agency, it was like, at last. You know, somebody is not trotting out the palliative.
Yes, they had backbone and courage of their conviction. So again, shout out to the North Lincolnshire councillors.
But what did you do? Because I mean, it's the first time we've heard a council actually articulate with such confidence and such conviction their concerns about the Environment Agency being fit for purpose. So what did you guys actually do to bring that about?
Well, I think, like a lot of us have said, extreme oil and gas extraction cannot be safely regulated. It's unregulatable, which I think United Nations Environmental Alert Committee was saying ages ago, that fracking and equivalents cannot be regulated. And the Environment Agency, like so many other bodies and agencies, have had their staffing levels cut to quite a level, so they're not able to function within their ordinary remit. Environment Agency at a local level is human and listens to us, and Markwells Wood, you were talking about the UCOG application for another kind of acidisation at Markwells Wood. The local Environment Agency objected. The higher up the levels you go with the Environment Agency, the more enmeshed it is with the government. So they're kind of constrained by the government, and they've also had their resources cut. So yeah, fracking isn't regulated, cannot be regulatable, and the agency who's set up to have supposedly a gold standard hasn't got the capacity with the best will in the world. So we just couldn't believe that they'd listened and they'd taken on all the information we'd sent them. Slowly, we didn't bombard them because there's a lot of information out there. We gave them the MEDAC reports to read. This was before this planning application went in, but they'd had one of these advisory notices on fracking. So we went to that and we handed out the MEDAC reports afterwards. And in fairness, I thought then they seem human and approachable, and they seem like they're willing to take information, because they saw we got these MEDAC reports and they came to. So I think from that moment, way before this planning application went in, I got a sense that North Lincolnshire Council
might just listen.
Yes, there were human beings in there, and that was certainly borne out by the decision they made 2 weeks ago.
So this is, I think, a seminal decision.
So, and it was, as I say, solidarity from the whole country. I really felt the whole country behind us. Even though we were a kind of small, sometimes very lonely team, we really felt the support of North Yorkshire, Nottinghamshire, Lancashire, East Yorkshire, Balcombe, Marpleswood, and the Union. So solidarity with the country, the planning committee having humanity and listening, and the unions.
So we can take on the corporatocracy that has no social conscience whatsoever. We can take on that corporatocracy.
No sign of it.
No evidence.
Yes, we can keep hoping for the evidence, because there must be human beings in there somewhere as well.
One can hope.
We can hope, yeah.
But Liz, it's absolutely tremendous effort and tremendous result. I mean, obviously, as we know, it's not over. It's not over, but this is a very significant battle victory. And other communities can take great, I think, spirit, from this.
Yeah. Yes.
So thank you very much for joining us here at Kirby Misperton Temp Protection Camp, and thank you very much for. I know you're very nervous about doing the interview today.
Pathologically camera shy.
But I think that I hope that when you watch this back, then you realise that the message that you're helping to get across is very important.
You have to be stand up and to be counted. Yeah.
So thank you very much, Liz. Absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's down for the media.
Fracking is not safe! Fracking needs to be banned! We don't want our water poisoned! We want our politicians to listen to us!
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Very good pace.
We want our politicians to listen to us! People have suffered already in other countries, and we don't want to make their mistakes. This is our water! It's banned in France as well! So come on, you guys! Wake up!
Okay, I'm here with Anne and June in the studio at the Kirby Misperton Protection Camp. And Anne and June are local residents, born and raised in Helmsley, which is probably, about 10 miles away from here. So, obviously you've been very big supporters of the camp since we arrived here a few weeks ago. But what was it that first made you aware that there may be an issue with unconventional gas exploitation in the area?
Well, we came to one of the evenings, one of the local evenings, and there was a film shown to us, and we sort of took it on board from there. We're really concerned about the fracking actually spreading over the whole area, and because we've always been concerned about the countryside, we just didn't want to see this lovely area of Rydale and any parts of the whole of the country really ruined by industrialisation, which we think will happen if fracking gets a hold.
Because Kirby Misperton, of course, is pretty much slap bang in the middle of the nearly 2,500 square miles, I think it is, that has been licensed for fracking in Yorkshire. And so obviously people are watching very closely what happens here in Kirby Misperton. But how have you found the reaction of your neighbours and other people in the Helmsley area to this?
I think people think that because gas has been mentioned, they think they're going to run a pipeline from Kirby Misperton through to Helmsley and think, oh gosh, we're going to get cheap gas, so why are you stopping it? And they don't realise what fracking actually means. When you talk to them in the street, they think of one well at Kirby Moorside, and that's quite a long way from Helmsley.
Kirby Misperton, you mean?
Kirby Misperton, sorry, Kirby Misperton, and it's quite a long way from Helmsley, and so why should we bother? If it means we're going to get some cheap gas, and it probably won't come around, industrialisation won't come around here, then why should we bother? And they don't really know what fracking is. If they could see fracking well and see the industrialisation that comes with it, then I'm sure they'd think twice.
So you guys have obviously done your research, and
Yes.
you've looked at this. So obviously you went to this first meeting, and that triggered your concern.
Very much so.
Yeah?
Yes.
And how much longer after that was it before you realised that this was a very serious threat to the area?
Well, we went to a local meeting again after the initial meeting where there was the film. We were invited then to go along to other meetings to find out a bit more about it, and we joined Frack Free Rydale, and it was from then on really they encouraged us to do our own research, and the more that we researched into it and looked at reports from America and Australia, that we realised how what a bad thing it is, and just began to fight it from there on. We just don't want it at all in the area, because it's just going to be absolutely horrendous. I mean, now we wake up every day and it's on your mind from getting up in the morning that there's always something to think about, either a report in the paper or some new research that's been done, or comments from people, and it's just an ongoing thing all the time. So it's just become a part of life really, to fight this and to get it stopped.
So you raise an interesting point, because we look at the impact or potential impact that this industry will have on the ecology, but there's also this impact that it has on health just through worry.
Yes,
It is, absolutely. It's like waking up with a cloud over your head on the morning, the anxiety of wondering about health, about changing your way of life. We live in a beautiful part of North Yorkshire, and we have a wonderful rural way of life. We have organic farms, we have beautiful agriculture, beautiful meat and produce. The tourism is second to none. The people that come here come back and back and back. They say, what a beautiful part of the world you live in. I wish we lived here. and Helmsley and the surrounding districts particularly are full of B&Bs, holiday lets, because people just love Rydale, and I think a lot of people, a lot of the businesses would suffer through fracking. We are trying to protect what we have, and we don't want to change. We don't want the change that the industrialisation of this area would bring, and in fact the whole country. I think that there are many, many other ways of producing energy without digging up the countryside and poisoning what we have. I do.
Well, I think a lot of the stress, sorry, I think a lot of the stress also is we started off and going to meetings and trying to tell people who don't seem particularly interested or won't take it on board. We've written letters, we've been to see our local MP Kevin Hollingray several times, and we've done everything. We've been to council meetings, we've organised fundraising, delivered leaflets. We've done everything over this past sort of 2.5 years, and you think that you're getting somewhere, and then like in May last year we worked towards that, and we thought, well, surely the council won't let it go ahead. North Yorkshire County Council won't say, give permission, and when they did that, it was just like everything had been pulled away from you. All your hard work was just swept under the table just in a few moments, really. And I think that is also a big contribution to your stress, because you're working hard all the time in the background, and it just seems that whatever avenue you try and open, it's closed down either by legislation or it's just unbelievable, really, how the goalposts are being moved all the time.
Now, there were hundreds of people at North Allerton in the anti-fracking pen that had been created outside of County Hall, and then there was an identical sized pen the other side of the driveway for the pro-fracking community, but that was empty.
It was totally empty, yes.
And so obviously there wasn't too much support there from that side. And when the decision was announced, I mean, I saw people literally burst into tears, because you say they put a lot of emotional as well as physical energy into trying to prevent it from happening. They believed in the democratic process. I think people actually believed that there was a really good chance that their elected representatives would follow the will of the people. And when that didn't happen, it was really an emotional outpouring.
There were so many professional people there who were very eloquent, and a lot of research had gone into it, and it was just as if that the councillors just didn't take a lot of notice of it and wanted to hurry it through. It was very, very disappointing. I don't feel that it was a very thorough hearing at all.
And then, of course, following that, there was the judicial review, and I know a lot of people obviously thought that perhaps the judicial review would follow the will of the people.
Yeah.
And then when that was, when the ruling was announced by Justice Leng on the 20th of December, at that point, I mean, I've spoken to some people in the local community who just feel exasperated that they've literally tried everything. They have left no stone unturned in the due democratic process. And yet still, even though 90% of the population in Rydale have declared that they don't want fracking, I mean, that's in the surveys that are being conducted, they've just pushed it through.
Yes.
So there's nothing else left except a camp.
That's right.
And so how do you feel about, I mean, obviously you've been supporting and you visited Kirby Misperton Protection Camp, but what are your thoughts on the camp? Are you glad it's here?
Yes, I think it's the only avenue now to have, and we're so lucky and very pleased to have people who are prepared to come and give up the time, because we need this base here to monitor what's going to happen. And I mean, we're not sure when things are going to start happening with Third Energy, but We need it here as a base to see what's happening, and also I'm hoping that people come and visit, local people. I've had a letter in the paper, and I've said to people, please go and visit the camp and see what it's about, and it's just for information and just to see what's happening, and get the feel of what we're up against as well.
And get a free cup of tea as well.
And get a free cup of tea.
Yeah.
But how have you found the hospitality of the camp?
Wonderful, wonderful. We've both got letters in the paper saying please go and visit, because the warm welcome, the support of the people, the way that they are supporting Rydale, and people should come and see and talk to them and realise what is happening on their doorstep. Without them, well, this is the last resort. It's a shame we've had to come to this, and the council should have listened to us. But so pleased that they're here, really pleased that they're here.
I couldn't believe the food store as well.
No.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well stocked, and it's just absolutely amazing. It's like a whole little friendly community, and we should be very, very grateful that they're here.
Anne and June, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on Fracking Nightmare.
Thank
you, Ian. Welcome. Yes, thank you.
If at this point in time you can stand in front of a drill rig and stop it from getting on. The easiest drill rig to stop's the first one. The hardest one will be the 10,000th. It'll be more than that though in the UK, because you're doing shale over there predominantly. Shale needs a lot of wells, needs a lot of destruction, poisons a lot of water.
If this gets the tiniest foothold, you know, you're done. So it's now or it's never. Don't think that you've got that long, because it's now or never. So you do it now, you stand up now, and you find something within yourself that you didn't think was there. You know, that's the important thing. You will be confronted by police. They wear their Kevlar suits, and it's a big intimidation thing.
Hey, you've got nobody in front of you. Keep walking in the way of this lady. Keep going. Don't push back on her. Keep moving. Now. If you keep going. Keep moving.
It's up to the people of the UK to get their cameras in the face of the Kevlar security, the Kevlar police, who are paid by the corporations. And we have to say no. That's all it is. But it's more than just saying no at a meeting. It's intent. It's the intent of no. It's the knowing that you mean no. That's when you will be unbelievably powerful. You come out in numbers. If they see your grandmother and the mother and the child come out and say, we are not going to accept this, then they are finished. But that's what it takes. Don't sit back and think that anybody's looking out for you. It's you.
And welcome back to part 3 of Fracking Nightmare here in the wilds of North Yorkshire, but it's the not so desolate wilds, as anybody who's been following the programme over the last few weeks will have seen, as we have had some 1,500 people come and meet with us, and those numbers will obviously continue to increase as word about Kirby Misperton protection camp spreads further afield and news of the welcome. And here I have to say that after 5 weeks I have yet to see or hear anyone who's actually visited the camp have a negative comment about their experience. So it doesn't matter whether you are pro-fracking, whether you're anti-fracking, or whether you're undecided. You are very welcome to come down and share a cup of tea. And of course, if you feel so motivated, come and join in the various projects going on around the field as we expand the camp and make ready for the time when Third Energy's trucks roll just outside here on Kirby Misperton Road. Now, my final guests tonight have travelled up from East Yorkshire. Now, this is Mike Farman and Wendy Cross. And Mike is an 83-year-old former electronics engineer with NASA, and his partner Wendy Cross, who's a little bit younger, but not that much. And Mike and Wendy were, I should say, an integral part of the East Yorkshire Geriactivists, the small group of people who committed to blockade every single truck that went into Rathlin Energy's well site at Crawberry Hill after the camp was evicted in January of 2015. Okay, well, I'm here with Mike and Wendy, who have come up to Kirby Misperton Protection Camp from East Yorkshire, and of course we got to know each other at Crawberry Hill.
Yes, we did.
And that was nearly 3 years ago.
Yeah, it must have been 2014 when I first heard about the camp.
You started before me, yeah.
Yeah, and I came. Yeah.
So, and you've been regularly coming up to Kirby Misperton. I mean, I think it's about a 140-mile round trip or so.
I don't know how far, but it takes about 45 minutes.
Oh, that's not so far
not
then.
Too bad.
Excellent.
No.
And of course, Crawberry Hill is still the most successful anti-fracking campaign in the UK to date, because at Crawberry Hill, Rathlin Energy had exactly the same permissions as Third Energy have here at Kirby Misperton. It was an existing well. They had permission to do a 5-stage test frack, but it was you guys and about a dozen or so others who you call yourselves the Geriactivists, who effectively ran Rathlin off with your persistence in blockading their trucks.
Yeah, we were persistent, and it wasn't, the weather wasn't kind to us, was it, up there? For most of the time we were there, it was...
It seemed we were there through several winters at the time.
Yeah.
But when the bailiffs came and closed the camp down, we felt we should continue there and keep going, and we did. We would go there once or twice, or maybe 3 times a week sometimes.
Yeah, I think some weeks we were there every day, I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, I have to say that the winds at Crawberry Hill were bitter, those easterly winds coming off the North Sea. But, you know, I'm not exactly in my youth, but, you know, I'm a spring chicken compared to you guys. I think, Mike, you're in your 80s?
Yeah, I'm 83.
83, and Wendy, you're a few years younger.
I'm 73, yeah.
And so full credit to you for enduring the conditions there. But now, Mike, you have a very interesting background as well, because I believe that at one time you were working with NASA.
I worked as an electronics engineer for NASA, under contract to NASA, working on equipment for stratospheric balloons.
And how long were you working with NASA?
About 18 years.
18 years. So, an electronics engineer working with NASA for 18 years. I'm guessing that you looked at the unconventional gas industry pretty thoroughly before deciding it was something that you would not want in your backyard.
Yes, living in Texas, I knew it was going on all around in Texas at that time. Although I wasn't very clued up at that time about the problems with fracking, and it's only when I came back to England when I retired that I started learning about it.
What led you to come to the conclusion that this is an industry that is not appropriate for the UK?
Well, for me, I don't know about led me to it, but I certainly felt that first of all, I thought that the cosmetic aspects, looking at my lovely area in East Yorkshire, were just, it was horrendous to think that we're going to destroy that. But now I'm very much committed to the idea that my health and the health of my family and the whole general public is going to be threatened and, you know, under terrible strain because of fracking if it goes ahead. That's how I felt. I don't know about you, Mike.
Well, as an engineer, I knew that a project, something like fracking, with all the different elements involved, could not possibly be completely error-free, and that there would be problems arising. And then I gradually got to know more and more about it, more and more disturbed by what I was finding out.
And you helped with that. I went to several of your talks concerning fracking.
Well, because East Yorkshire, well, the whole of Yorkshire is a beautiful county. I mean, I don't think people realise in the south of England just how big Yorkshire is. Not as big as Texas, but in terms of the UK, it's a big county.
Right.
And divided, of course, into 3 areas, really: the East Riding, the North Yorkshire and West Yorkshire. And of course, the tragedy is that pretty much the whole county is under attack from this industry. And of course, after the 14th round, I mean, it almost looks like the British government has unleashed environmental warfare on the north of England.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that a lot of the drill sites are completely over the large area that the aquifer takes up in this part of the world.
And that is a great concern, isn't it? I know Scarborough actually gets its water directly from the aquifer that is under us right now.
Yeah.
And then I think it's the Boolean aquifer that runs right the way down through to East Yorkshire and down into the Midlands.
Yes.
And
it's horrifying to see how many PEDLs are placed around that aquifer.
Absolutely, the whole area. This whole area is licensed. Yeah. So you guys have run Rathin off of Crawberry Hill, although of course Rathin Energy do have permission to drill another well at West Newton A and establish a pad at about a mile or so away at West Newton B. Now that's interesting, isn't it? Because those 2 pads will be about a mile apart, and if this industry actually gets a foothold, that will be the footprint of this industry right across the whole area.
Yes.
A pad every mile or so. It's unthinkable, isn't it?
Yeah. I've heard Mike talk about how he's flown over Texas and into Texas and seen the pattern of those wells, and to think that the East Riding, and the UK anyway, is going to be so startlingly affected by those wells, and it's just going to change everything forever. And of course tourism is a big industry in our area, and that's going to go. People don't want to come and through the roads that are choked with vehicles, do they, all to see anything here of our rich heritage, you know.
Well, in the height of the season, the roads where we are right now are choked anyway because it's a popular tourist destination.
Yeah.
And yes, with the traffic from the gas industry, I mean, it would just be horrendous, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
You can imagine the impact it will have on a village like this, and it will be like that in lots of other places too if it goes ahead.
So there are some people, a very few, who even in this beautiful part of the country seem to think that it will be an asset because the industry or the revenues for this area come ostensibly from tourism and agriculture, and there are a few people who think that this will add a sort of third dimension to the area's GDP. Well, what would you say to those people?
Well, we know it's not going to evolve into a reduction in gas or energy prices. We've had that on good authority that it won't do that.
So there's not really any benefit at all, is there?
No.
It seems.
No.
I mean, this area has been sold really to France, with the Tour de France had part of its tour, didn't it?
And now it has the Tour de Yorkshire.
And now the Tour de Yorkshire. And, you know, we're kind of selling the area all the time, but it's really a false promise, because if fracking goes ahead, it's not going to be like that. You know, I can't see that it's going to enhance the area at all. I think that's an absolutely preposterous idea if people have that. They have no imagination, I think, some people. They cannot see in their mind's eye what could happen here.
And my view is we should be getting rid of mining all kinds of fossil fuels, because we should be thinking about what it's like to happen in the future.
And we have plenty of opportunity with renewables, solar, wind,
Absolutely.
wave power.
Yes.
And it's not that long ago, is it, that the country was effectively powered by wind and water until the hydrocarbons industry came along.
Yeah. I don't, just going back to Crawberry Hill, I don't think, No, I really want to say how much fun in some ways it was. It was that lovely sense of camaraderie that you get from a group of people all about the same business, really. But I know how very, very scaring it was, you know, to see the police sort of disgorging from their vans. And, you know, I know that one time I had to hold on to the fence. I was so frightened, you know. But still we kept going because we just knew that there was a good prospect ahead if we could only stave them off. And like you say, Ian, I know that we did. You know, we managed somehow to make things so difficult that they cleared off, you know, and they thought they'd cleared us off, but we certainly were determined, weren't we?
Well, and the date is indelibly printed on my mind because it was the 12th of August of 2015,
Yes.
the glorious 12th,
Yes.
that Rathlin announced that they were pulling out of Crawley Hill, and the area of the field would be returned to its former agricultural usage. And well, you know, it was a small number of people, it was yourselves and I know 15, 20 others maybe maximum, and this rota of the Jerry activists going up and blocking the gate. And of course the police didn't want to arrest you, Rathlin Energy didn't want you arrested, and they realised that you were never going to give up.
Yeah, they did.
I
But
think we were definitely an embarrassment to them.
yeah,
That was good.
yeah. I'm just thinking about John and Val getting arrested, though. I mean, they were part of that group, and they
But that was
certainly
right at
went-
the very start,
That's
wasn't
true,
it?
yeah.
That was
Yes, yes.
before the camp, or just as the camp was arriving there.
Yes.
And of course, their charges were eventually dropped,
Like a lot of other people.
as
who
were
arrested,
almost all
yeah.
of the other charges. So it was purely intimidatory.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, John and Val Marga were not intimidated, and I think they were inspirational in many
yes, of
respects.
course.
Yeah. Well, they certainly
Us all,
got.
didn't they?
They certainly got me to go there in the sense that John came to do a talk to the Labour Party branch that I belong to, and the next day 3 or 4 of we women went up there to see what was going on, and became active in that group because of that, you know, spreading the word like that. And now we're here at Kirby Misperton and really impressed at what's going on here. You know, we're not going to let them win.
And we feel that Kirby Misperton is the next challenge, that we will come as often as we can to join in whatever happens here.
Well, it's fantastic, and I mean, as you've seen, the support from the local community here in North Yorkshire is truly amazing. I mean, I don't think any of us ever realised the magnitude of the support that we would get, and that's a credit to the local groups here, because they've been sowing seeds. I mean, many of them came down to Crawley Hill to sort of take a look, and then they bought their experience back, and they've been sowing the seeds for 2.5 years, and of course they have literally done everything they possibly can to try and prevent it through due process. But with the judicial review ruling on December the 20th, there's nowhere else to go. So yes, we've had about 1,500 people through the gates here over the past 5 weeks. You can hear the horns are tooted, you know, right throughout the day in support. The letters that are appearing in the local press are primarily of support for the camp. And yeah, I mean, right now, if I was in John Dewar's shoes, I'd be really starting to wonder whether I've bitten off more than I could chew.
And however little or how much those people can do who do visit, it's all so vital, isn't it, for
Absolutely.
the movement.
Well, I was asked by the BBC at the weekend, you know, why I was here, and did I feel that it was appropriate to be here in a field that didn't belong to me. And I said, well, I have the social license, because 90% of the people here have stated categorically that they do not want unconventional gas exploitation in North Yorkshire, and the establishment completely ignore that. So I said, you know, I have the mandate from the people to be here. Third Energy do not. And with your help and people, well, we've got a visitor here.
And it's very encouraging that all over the country the anti-fracking movement is growing all the time. As people get to understand what it involves, they are getting more and more
Exactly.
on our side.
And we know we're going to win this, don't we?
Yeah.
We know.
We do.
And it's just a question of now Theresa May, of course, and she's inherited this poison chalice from Cameron and Osborne. But it really, I think, is just a question of time. I mean, we've got elections coming up in May. I think that those elections are going to send a massive message, as well as the anti-fracking candidates, I'm sure, will take many seats from the pro-fracking candidates. Hope so. Mike and Wendy, it's been an absolute pleasure to join you on the front line over the last, what is it now, nearly 3 years. And hopefully the success that you guys achieved at Crawberry Hill will be achieved here at Kirby Misperton and everywhere else throughout the country.
I'm sure it will.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Wendy. Please take a look at the phenomenal support that the camp is getting from the local community by taking a look at the Look North report, which appeared on the BBC, in fact, on Wednesday evening. So link to that is under the YouTube video. So thanks very much for joining us, and all being equal, we will see you next Thursday at 7:30 on ukcolumn.org/live, and of course on Facebook. So thanks very much.